My name is Ben Espinosa. I'm an arts manager here at the Department of Cultural Affairs, the City of Los Angeles. I'm joined by two colleagues in the Grants Division. They are Brenda Ceja and Serena Casane. Our goal today is to talk about the Department of Cultural Affairs Cultural Grant Program for the upcoming fiscal year 2027 to 2028. Although folks are muted, we do invite questions as we go over the course of today's content. Please take advantage of the chat feature. Feel free to type in questions as we go along. I will ask Serena to keep an eye out on those questions, and we'll pause at good opportune times during today's presentation to address those questions. So I think with that, we can jump right in. So again, a reminder, this is the Department of Cultural Affairs with the City of Los Angeles. Our agency has a mission of improving the quality of life for all of our residents, workers, and visitors in the city of LA by ensuring everyone has great access to the arts. And one of our key levers for making that a reality is our cultural grant program. This is a program that is intended to support a variety of local nonprofit groups based in the region as they deliver free and low-cost arts and cultural opportunities for the public. We're going to spend about 90 minutes or so going over the program. I want to say approximately a half hour of that will go over the basic program specifications, logistics, and eligibility project requirements, and then a good portion towards the end, kind of taking a peek at what the application process looks like. So with that, let's start off with a series of key checklist items regarding eligibility. I want to reiterate, we are a local municipal funder, so geography is very important. It's important that you're based out here in the region, which we define as LA County. You have to, number one, be a nonprofit organization, 501c classification with a mission to deliver arts and cultural services. There are a couple exceptions to this. You can be a nonprofit organization based in the region with a non-arts focused mission, and you plan to produce an outdoor festival or parade in partnership with a arts organization, a collection of artists, curators to produce an arts and cultural focused outdoor event. Fiscally sponsored organizations are not eligible either. With an exception of some projects housed under community partners, which is a Los Angeles city-based incubator based in downtown. If you're a project under community partners, you may be eligible with an artistic project. In those instances, I would encourage you to reach out to the DCA grant staff with questions to confirm that eligibility. So as I mentioned, you have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. So for-profit businesses, artist collectives that are not incorporated as a 501c3s, LLCs, individual artists cannot apply to this specific grant program. On the DCA's website, under the grants page, we do have a range of other opportunities. It is possible, if you are in the region, you deliver services in LA City, that you could be eligible for funding through other opportunities. So take a look at that if you haven't already. So while you can be based anywhere in our region in LA County, it is important that you're proposing services to take place within the city of Los Angeles. So keep that in mind. We are a city municipal funder, and it is important that we can only support activities taking place within the boundaries of our city. So you can be based in Santa Monica, you can be based in Long Beach, you can be based in Torrance, based in Whittier, Altadena, Culver City. That's okay because that's all within LA County, but you need to be proposing activities to benefit residents, visitors within the city of LA. Okay, and another key eligibility requirement is that we cannot support brand new ideas, pilot projects, or initiatives to these grant programs. You have to come to us with a project you've done before, a concept you've produced and presented at least once before. And you're coming to us with a project pitch for how a city investment can make it bigger, faster, stronger, better. So it's important that you've done this at least once before, so you have fantastic images, videos, stories, metrics, and other great things to brag about in the context of a project proposal. So it's important to be able to tell us a story about the recent audiences and impact you've created with the project that you've already done so that you can put together a much more robust, detailed proposal. We can't support brand new projects. And finally, depending on the type of project you're proposing, we do have a range of other category-specific qualifications you need to meet, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Uh, Before we jump into those types of specific projects, I want to highlight a couple of key administrative considerations before you jump in with a grant proposal to the City of LA. A reminder that unfortunately, these are not grants that are awarded with a giant ceremonial check presented to you right up front after your grant gets approved. You're basically competing for an opportunity to get a contract with the City of Los Angeles. So that comes with a bevy of responsibilities and implications. In order to do business with the city, you have to be duly registered with the City of Los Angeles Office of Finance with a business tax registration certificate. You have to have proper enrollment in the city's regional alliance marketplace for procurement and ramp system. And you have to have all of that in good standing with the city systems in order to get the contract, including insurance requirements. The city has a fully robust risk management department that dictates requirements for getting a contract with the city. Things like having a general liability policy covering potentially $1 million in damages and claims. If you're primarily working with youth audiences, it's important that you might be asked by risk management to maintain sexual misconduct insurance. So insurance requirements and risk management factors are also things to keep in mind if you're going to pursue a contract with the City of Los Angeles. These grants are not intended to cover 100% of any project proposal. Our grants come with a minimum one-to-one matching requirement. If you're asking the city for a $20,000 investment towards an initiative, it's important that you're thinking about fundraising another $20,000 from non-city sources, at least, to make that project a reality. These grants do come with a one-to-one match requirement, which can be met with a mix of donated in-kind services and materials, plus cash and cash equivalent sources. Another key consideration about our grants is that they are delivered on a reimbursement basis. As I mentioned before, these are not cash upfront grants. The idea is you're producing services for the public and are billing the city afterwards for reimbursement. We might find creative ways based on incurred or anticipated project expenses where you can bill us for some portion of your grant award in advance. But generally speaking, it's best to think about our grants as reimbursement grants. So that's an important detail. Please keep that in mind before pursuing a grant with us. And finally, it might be obvious, but these grants, of course, are based on the City of Los Angeles municipal budget. All that to say is that I don't know how much money we have available for this cycle of new grant applications. We are asking you to forecast activities taking place several months into the future. Activities taking place no earlier than July 1, 2027, going into June 30, 2028. That is the city's fiscal 27-28 fiscal year. I can tell you what historically this grant program has had about in the last 6 to 7 years, anywhere between $3.5 to $4 million available for awarding nonprofits for free or low cost activities. We generally get approximately, all told, there's over 300 proposals. We're proud to say we fund the vast majority of those eligible proposals. But what that means is when applicants come to us with, a dollars amount of requests in the hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars, we could only fund a portion of what you're asking of us. For frame of reference, the average grant across our entire grantee portfolio in the cultural grant program kind of hovers just below $10,000. Folks who are eligible to request more, ranging from $20,000 to $40,000, the top ranked, best reviewed, best regarded proposals may be fortunate to receive close to 50% of their grant asks. All that to say is there's uncertainty with available funding we have. And when applying for government grants, it is always good to expect that you will never get 100% of your grant ask, just because the budget environment is so very challenging. Okay, so with some key eligibility and some admin considerations in mind, I think it's a good time to pause if there's any questions. Serena, I'll ask you, has there been any ch questions in the chat
Yeah,
for these
we have
items?
a couple. The first is if they're proposing a project they've done previously, but not in the city of Los Angeles, would that be allowed?
Potentially. I wouldn't say that's ineligible outright. Um, let's say, for example, you're based in Culver City and you produce an event in Culver City, and you've discovered that the vast majority of your attendees they live, work, and reside in the city of LA, your next door neighbor. It makes total sense to conceive of a next iteration of that project in the city of LA and adjacent Council District 11, for example. There's a very clear case for that. On the other hand, maybe the last iteration of the event took place outside of our region, maybe even outside of the state. It's incumbent upon you to persuade a grant panel why it makes sense for this next iteration of the event to take place locally here. So it varies, but it's good to ask the question and to make sure that you have a case for why the event is coming to LA, or maybe it's been in LA in the past and is coming back. That's a good case for bringing it back, because if there's audience demand for that, so it's possible. So you might want to reach out to grant staff to kind of to discuss further and for some tips on how to articulate that justification in your grant proposal. Any other questions, Serena?
Yeah, we've got a couple at the moment. Do you have to arrange all those city contract requirements and nuts and bolts in advance of applying or only once awarded?
Thank goodness the answer to that is no. So we know it's already quite an ask to think about project activities taking place many months in the future. That's those things are regarding BTRC, that's business license, ramp enrollment, and insurance. That is, we don't ask for those proof or documentation of that in the context of a proposal, but do know if you are awarded a grant, those will be required as a condition of contracting with you.
We have some questions about budget details. In specific, an organization just reached 1 million for their budget this last year. Which budget group should they select?
Great. Well, let's table that question for a little bit later when we talk about applicant organization size and allowable grant requests. That's a good question.
And then someone else is asking about dual registration with something with the city and then the ramp system, which, like Ben mentioned, you don't really have to stress out about until after you're awarded.
Right. Yeah. We say that up front just to remind folks that there are other requirements involved upon receiving the good news of getting a grant. And they're important considerations because we don't want you going through the trouble of putting together a beefy grant proposal, only to realize later on that the capacity of the organization is not one to actually accept it. So we want to be transparent about those up front, but for the purpose of a grant proposal, we want you thinking about an awesome artistic project, outdoor festival that serves the public, how much it costs, and to convince us that this is a project that the city is worth investing in.
Okay, and then does the excellence of the proposal inform the percentage of the award?
Absolutely. We'll talk about panel process later, but the overall, the big picture idea is this is a competitive process. We have approximately 350 organizations vying for a piece of the pie. And so you are scored by panelists based on predetermined criteria that we assign the panelists to consider. And we'll go over what those are in a little bit, but we add up all of those the scores based on that scoring criteria, and everyone is ranked from number one to the 350 on based on those criteria. And the folks in the upper tier of the rank will get a larger percentage of their grant ask as compared to the folks lower. Great.
Justin has a question, but it's a little bit specific. So Justin, if you don't mind, I'm gonna hold that for later. And then the last one that's relevant here is if a project has run internationally in the past and they want to bring it to LA, how can they make their proposal strong?
Great. Well, we'll talk about some of those strategies. If you're a LA County-based organization who's produced internationally, and there's some version of that international event, there's certainly ways to make a case for why it makes sense to bring it into Los Angeles and to request a city investment toward it. Well, that's actually a great segue into the types of projects that we like to support through our grant program. So let's start off with going over these items of these categories. I would say 85% of those organizations in attendance today will be proposing an indoor artistic project. This is a type of project where you are employing an impressive roster of professional artists, performing artists, visual artists, multidisciplinary artists, creatives to do what they do best, and that is to do their craft and to present it to the public. And this year is an even numbered year, 2026. And so in these even numbered calendar years, DCA will be convening the community peer panel experts in the traditional performing arts. So we're going to be convening a panel of expert choreographers, dancers, dance organization administrators, academics in dance. The same for music, theater, and the transdisciplinary arts. So just an overview what are typical projects that are submitted in this category. Under dance, this is your series of dance classes, workshops, concerts, and other presentations where you're employing professional dancers and choreographers to present to the public a wide range of styles, and we are open to all of it, from ballet to ballroom to classical to contemporary, experimental hip hop. We love it all. So think about the presentations, and they are all geared towards a public presentation. Same thing with music. We are convening experts in a wide variety of music, administrators in music organizations, composers, musicians, practitioners, and similarly, we are open to a wide range of styles and genres, from Baroque, classical, hip hop, choral, opera. It's all wonderful and welcome under our music artistic discipline. Theater, this is a year for theater projects as well. These are new productions, new plays, these are stage readings, these are musical theater productions, workshops, educational opportunities for youth and or adults taking place outside of the school setting. And also the transdisciplinary arts, where you are enrolling an impressive roster of multidisciplinary artists to produce innovative, experimental, avant-garde presentations that fuse two or more of the traditional art forms. In the transdisciplinary arts category, you are thinking about presentations where you are employing a range of artists who would not be logically adjudicated in dance, music, theater. It is best that they would be adjudicated by experts and practitioners who have a multidisciplinary practice. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions regarding our indoor artistic projects. A quick note, by the way, for folks who might be coming back to reapply this year, we did a very minor tweak on the category name. We wanted to emphasize that the vast majority of these projects take place indoors, in indoor settings. Not to say that there could be exceptions to that. Let's say, for example, you are a theater company thinking about a Shakespeare in the Park concept, and your company is going to produce a play that happens to take place outdoors. We still want you clicking this artistic project category. That's an exception. You might also be a music organization, symphony, chamber ensemble, or chorus, who has a plan to do a series of outdoor concerts featuring primarily your chorus, your ensemble, even though your presentations taking place in a public park, for example. We still want you to click the indoor artistic project category. You are the exceptions to our rule. The vast majority of projects take place indoors, and we wanted to emphasize that. Another exception is organizations who might propose online live stream performances and produce and are pitching a project that emphasize an online or virtual experience. That is okay also, but the important consideration in those instances is that you are producing the presentation from a location in the city of Los Angeles, and that you are building a project where you have a mechanism for monitoring, tracking who is tapping in, logging in to engage with your online broadcast. We cannot support online activities. Number one, if they're produced and broadcast from a location outside of the city of LA, or if you're doing it in a way where you're not able to track and capture meaningful data about the people attending and enjoying your work. So keep that in mind. All right. If this is 80% of the proposals we get, I would say maybe 15% are submitted under our outdoor cultural presentations, festivals, and parades category. These are terrific events, and as a city funder, we love these because we get great bang for the buck on these types of events taking place out in outdoor spaces like public parks, public plazas, public corridors, streets that are appropriately closed off and permitted to be used by pedestrians and people walking by. These are events where, and this is a very important DCA specific definition for the outdoor cultural presentations, festivals, parades category, where you have an event showcasing a wide array of unaffiliated acts, musicians, performers, creative workers, and artists. In contrast to those uh, artistic projects I mentioned earlier, where let's say you're a theater company and your theater company is doing a Shakespeare production out in the public park, there's a main stage in this category where you're showcasing at least four or more unaffiliated groups. You're showcasing, theater company A, theater company B, maybe you have a dance company also. You have a series or a set of DJs who are also presenting. The outdoor festival and parades category showcases a wide array of groups. It's not just you as the host producing organization presenting yourself. You're presenting many others. So that's an important distinction in this category. What's unique about this category as well is we take a look closely at the attendance at your most recently produced event as a way of how we calculate how much you're allowed to ask of us in your grant request. So we divvy it up into three categories. You're a very small festival slash pop-up for us if you're reaching fewer than 500 people the last time you did your event. You're the most of our outdoor festivals and parades fall under this middle tier, tier two, where you're reaching an audience of 500 to 2,000 people. If you're at over 2,000 people, these are the very, very large events, oftentimes spanning multiple city blocks, reaching a lot of people, and you are a very large tier three group for us. A quick update to those who are coming back to us regarding this category. Whereas in the past we supported art walks under this category, we have shied away and have phased out support for art walks, primarily due to risk management concerns about self-guided audience in motion activities where the public is asked to cross streets, walk along sidewalks going from point A to point B. If those because of the concerns around pedestrian safety when the streets are not appropriately closed off, cordoned off, permitted to be used without vehicles, we have shied away from that. If you are coming to us with a project that is what is traditionally an art walk, you might think about what component of that art walk event you can compartmentalize as a standalone showcase where you're presenting four or more unaffiliated acts. Maybe, for example, there's an opening event for that art walk where you have a main stage and you have a range of performers performing. That could be the fundable components of that event. So there's creative ways to do that as well to make it fit our guidelines. But just do know any kind of project where you're asking people to cross streets, do some self-guided movement is no longer allowable. I'll pause here and talk if there's any questions about our two top categories, artistic projects and outdoor festivals and parades. Anything come in, Serena?
Yes, so for artistic projects, they were wondering if you could provide some examples of previously funded transdisciplinary events.
Previously funded transdisciplinary events. Okay. So I'm trying to think what comes to mind. Oftentimes, it kind of falls under our what you might describe as experimental, something that you wouldn't see a fusion of artistic disciplines that you're not accustomed to seeing. Contrast that to something like opera or musical theater, which are rightfully adjudicated for us in the music or theater panels, respectively, because you're fusing stagecraft with live music, for example. That for us would not be a transdisciplinary project. On the other hand, if you're proposing an avant-garde presentation featuring experimental dance, live poetry, projection on the stage in a way that audiences are not accustomed to. It's truly innovative in a way that is something that people do not regularly see on the stage. Then you might be entering the transdisciplinary category. A good test is to take a look at your planned list of professional paid of artists that would be funded through this project. If these are if you're recognizing there's a lot of experimental, multidisciplinary artists involved, and proposing a project that doesn't easily fit into the mold of a dance project, music project, theater project, it's a good chance that you're probably crossing into the transdisciplinary artistic discipline.
Similarly, what about an art service project within a discipline? For instance, a gathering of Black playwrights to support community building, networking, and creative connection amongst LA City storytellers.
Wow, what a great segue into the other project categories that I'd love to talk about. So in that example, I think that is a good kind of a sample of what we call a field advocacy and sector learning, a FASL project. In this instance, in this special category, you are not asking artists, performers, presenters to perform for an audience. Rather, you're convening them for exactly what you just described, Serena. You're convening folks around learning, around field building, around networking opportunities, to improve their knowledge of the field and expand their practice. So this is where you'd have conferences come in, professional development opportunities come in, where you have run events where you've successfully convened professionals, like-minded creatives together to learn from one another. So we don't have a whole lot of FASL projects. It's always if you're proposing a FASL project, it's a good idea to reach out to DCA staff for a coaching call just to double confirm that this is where you belong. It's a very unique category. We don't have a whole lot of them. Another project category that we don't see as much of is our sequential arts and school learning, culminating in after-school public events project category. It's a mouthful, but it's an important one to be so detailed. And this is what folks might be familiar with as are formally known as arts education projects. We want to be very specific here because an important note when dealing with DCA is that we are not an education funder. We are primarily funders of free and low cost activities that are available to the general public. It's stuff that Serena and I can go to without and have a great time and enjoy. That being said, we are happy to invest in the learning that's taking place within the school building, as long as there's something at the end of that process, culminating showcase and presentation that Serena and I can easily go to. And we define that as something that's scheduled after school hours, in the evenings, and the weekends, where we can drive up and show up in the school building without being pressed around whether or not we have a child enrolled, for example. So it's important for us to note that DCA is not primarily an education funder. We fund the free and low cost public event that's open to all at the end of the process. A note, that is an interesting detail about public schools. Whereas public schools are all over the place, but for us, public schools are not public spaces. We have difficulty going into the school building unless you have a child enrolled there. So this is distinct from an artistic project that emphasizes as an educational component, right? These take place during the school day, working with a consistent group of enrolled students, um, involving a very rigorous and robust curriculum that's aligned with state California visual and performing arts standards. So, whereas educational projects in an artistic project category, we would convene practitioners, educators, administrators in programming that emphasizes education. In the Sail Cape category, we take the extra step in finding panelists who work within the school system as specialists in the dance, music, theater, and visual arts, etc., to help us adjudicate these proposals. We want folks who are involved in LA Unified. We want administrators and specialists who know what the visual and performing arts standards are, and to help us evaluate the curricula that these SailCape applicants have uploaded to determine how detailed and rigorous they are to verify that they are in fact aligned with state learning standards. I'll pause there for our questions regarding SailCape and FASL. These are, I would say, SailCape and FASL constitute, I don't know, maybe what do we have left? Probably like 5 to 10% of our grantee pool. Okay.
We don't have any Sail Cape or Festival questions right now, just a couple more questions revisiting festival eligibility that we can hold on to.
Great. Thank you, Serena. All right, so we spent some time now talking about what we are looking for, what types of projects we are open to receiving. Let's highlight a couple of the things that we just cannot fund. So, and this list is the result of many readings of proposals, unfortunate disqualifications, and regrets that we have to reach out to folks who have submitted proposals. It's a very important to understand the things that the city is not able to support through this grant program. Private invitation only events where you are soliciting attendance registration from a subset of folks, like fundraisers, press events, and galas, not a good fit for us. As I mentioned before, brand new or pilot initiatives where you don't have an existing body of metrics and data, photos and videos of it happening in the past, not a good fit for this grant program. Expensive projects, expensive activities are also a no-go. And we define that very, very specifically. An expensive activity based on either you're charging people an average registration, admission, or ticket price that is expensive. And we define that as what one might pay for going to see the movies nowadays. Commercial movie ticket nowadays maybe like about 25, hitting close to $30. If you are asking people to pay that cost to attend your event project, you're probably okay within our free or low cost definition. Expensive project on a project cost per head basis are also not a good fit for us. So this one revolves a little bit more math. If you take the total cost of your project, and if you divide the total cost of your project by the number of people you're engaging and working closely with, we call that a project cost per head. And we don't want that to be expensive. But that can vary depending on the type of experience you're proposing, right? If you're producing, let's say, a $60,000 outdoor festival or event where you're reaching 2,000 people who attend your day-long event for a couple hours or so, you're going to get a very thrifty cost per head ratio of $10, $5, or even less than that if you divide the total cost of your festival by the number of people you've reached. Contrast that with a Sail Cape project where you are a theater teaching artist working with a group of eighth graders over a 4-month period to learn rigorous standards aligned curriculum, and then doing a musical theater production for the public at the end of that. That project's probably going to cost over $150, $200 plus per person served. So both of those scenarios are reasonable. It's projects that don't quite add up, where let's say you're doing an outdoor festival and then you do the cost per head ratio and then it winds up being $100 per person. That's not great. Sail Cape project at $100 per person, more palatable depending on the level of change that you are illuminating in your project proposal. So keep that in mind. Expensive projects not a good fit for us. Anything related to contests and competitions are also discouraged. We like going to DCA sponsored events where everyone leaves a winner and is happy. Keep that in mind when framing and strategizing about what type of project to propose. If indeed your programming is kind of structured around the sort of, contest or competition kind of spirit, um, think about how you can frame a project around either the early parts of that process where you're showcasing everybody, or after the competition is done and you invite the best of or the stars of the event to do a special DCA sponsored showcase where everyone's a winner. So avoid contest and competition language in your proposals. I'm not surprised that projects that are primarily religious in nature and intent are no good for us. We love the use of religious spaces, such as churches, synagogues, as long as the programming happening indoors that you're inviting the public to is primarily not in religious in nature and intent. Open mic and open call projects are a big no-no for us, and this is often trips up a lot of proposals. Open mic, open call projects put you in a very disadvantaged position about giving us a heads up of who are the artists you're going to pay, what are the topics and themes they're going to that they're going to present to the public, which is can be a scary thing for a government funder. So similar to the contest and competition strategy, if you have programming that heavily emphasizes open mic and open call concepts, look back at the last time you did that event, invite back the stars of that process so that you can present a curated showcase as for a DCA project. And finally, we think of our grant program as primarily as a creative job creator and sustainer here in our region. We love and ask our applicants and grantees to please earmark DCA money towards people's jobs, specifically professional artists, creatives, the technical people who make arts and culture alive in the city. When you are proposing a project where you're asking DCA money to pay for, building improvements, seismic upgrades, building a new stage, a new sound system, buying computers, paying for travel and hospitality for a superstar artist, these are things that you cannot use DCA money toward. So if you propose a project where your grant ask is primarily geared toward those things, it can lead to a potential disqualification. So prioritize the use of any DCA grant asked towards paying for people's jobs. Any questions there? All
Um,
right.
we've got a couple questions about
Sure.
combinations of applications. So, for example, if you're applying for a festival, are you also able to apply for FASL or Sail Cape or an artistic project?
Thank you for that question. And something I forgot to highlight. It answers the question is, how many proposals am I allowed to submit? So if you are if you are an arts organization, you're allowed to submit up to two proposals, just as long as one of those two proposals is in our outdoor festivals and parade category. So let's say you are a theater company, and you are requesting an artistic project to present a production, a theatrical production. That's an artistic project. That's one proposal. And let's say you also run a Cinco de Mayo festival in the neighborhood. You happen to be the producer because you have an awesome space outside of your theater to do an outdoor event where you put together a main stage and showcase a range of artists, musicians, performers that are not affiliated with your theater company. That qualifies as an outdoor festival parade proposal. So you get to submit up to two.
Okay.
All right.
Something that's come
Oh,
up a
sorry.
couple different times that I would just like to clear up is that film festivals do not belong under the festival category unless they're happening outside. Um, so we have a question about if the project we want to propose is a film festival that includes short films focused on social justice by our organization and others. We've done live screenings in the past and would like to include other organizations. Would this be considered a fit for a grant? So it is, but it is not part of our disciplines right now.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for the question. Um, it is a common tripping point for our applicants because a lot of our applicants do wonderful programming using the word festival. That's why it's important to keep in mind our very specific DCA definition of an outdoor festival or parade. A film festival is a classic example, or maybe even a theater festival. Oftentimes, these take place in indoor settings, and regardless if you're showcasing a wide range of unaffiliated acts or just your own talent in your organization, um, it's still an indoor artistic project for us. That reminds me about the artistic disciplines. I mentioned earlier that in these even numbered calendar years, like 2026, we're convening expert panels in these four artistic disciplines. What if you're a visual arts organization? What if you're a museum? What if you are you know, an institution that primarily displays objects that's available to the public? We're not convening a panel this year around the design of visual arts. We're not convening a panel this year around media for film festivals. So you have a couple of options. If you find yourself, as an applicant proposing what we call an off-cycle artistic project, we are going to set aside a very small amount of money once we have our budget determined to fund no more than five projects with awards of very modest awards of up to no more than $6,000. So if you feel like you have a really rock star idea, superstar, supersonic project that you think that we would love, you can submit that off-cycle proposal in the off-cycle artistic disciplines, but do know you will be capped at a much more modest dollar amount. And that's because we're not going to have the appropriate experts reading your proposal. What we will endeavor to do is put together a mixed panel of experts. There will be a film person there. There will be a museum person there. There will be a culture history expert there reviewing this mixed panel of proposals. And so we would rather encourage you to either wait until next year when we do convene those experts to submit an on-cycle proposal. Or if you can't wait, you're chomping at the bit and you want to submit a compelling proposal this year, you're welcome to do so, but just do know you would be capped at a much more modest dollar amount.
Thank you. And one last question is that for Sail Cape, do we include both project participants, students, and audience members in the cost per head?
Absolutely. And it's not just Sail Cape, it's for all our projects. When you're considering a project cost per head ratio, we're interested in the total number of people engaged, from your staff, from your contract employees, from volunteers and of course the audience that you're reaching. Okay. I want to take a quick moment and talk about this idea of project versus program. When you reach out to DCA staff, grant staff, we will reiterate and underscore and amplify this concept that DCA is not a general operating funder. We are not a program funder. DCA is a project funder. Our grants are much too small to support year-round operating activities of all the wonderful organizations that we support. We are a project funder. So it's important that you come to us with a thoughtfully designed, strategically framed project for funding consideration. So I have some questions here I've listed I want you to think about as you are pitching and putting together the pieces for a grant proposal. Are you thinking about activities that are going to span 7 months or more, potentially over an entire year? Are you having a hard time bragging about all the wonderful things that you plan to do within our tight 500-word project narrative? When you're doing the finances and you're thinking about how much everything's going to cost that you want to put in your project proposal, are you finding that your total project budget is oddly very similar to your organization's operating budget that you reported to the IRS? Or conversely, did you smartly use DCA allowable grant request calculator, which we'll talk about in a minute, to determine how much you're allowed to ask of us, but then find it's a tiny percentage of your overall project budget? And finally, are you thinking about touring the entire LA city Pardon me, Siri wanted to chime in there. If touring the entire LA City municipal geography, touring five or more council districts, these are all indicators that you are probably thinking more about a program rather than a strategic project for DCA funding consideration. I challenge you, take a look. If you fall on if you're asking yes, answering yes to these questions, I challenge you to take stock of all your planned activities and your expenses. Think about how you could zero in the subset of that so that you can identify the parts of your general initiative to find the especially competitively fundable components that's aligned with the DCA funding priorities. So as I mentioned earlier, we love free or low cost events. If you're taking stock of your activities and there's components there where there's expensive things, you might consider cutting that out of your proposal to us and emphasizing only on the free or low cost. A common example, you might be producing a new run of shows of a new theatrical production, but you've included as part of your project budget the more expensive like VIP event where you're charging very expensive tickets to see the opening night. It would be good to chop that out of your project narrative and emphasize on the bargain matinee weekend showcases or the free or low cost community outreach tickets that you're going to send out to partnering nonprofits and schools in the area. That way you can really emphasize the free or low cost elements. Another thing to consider is that, as I mentioned, we think of our grant program as a job creator. So if you have a menu of activities to pitch to us as a grant project, zero in on the ones where you can really brag about a robust list of professional artists, ideally here in the LA region, that you'd be able to pay because of a grant. It's considered a situation where you have a range of activities planned for the year. One happens to be very, very volunteer heavy in focus, where you don't really pay a whole lot of people to execute the project, versus another initiative where you have a very impressive roster where you're bringing in a range of artists, paying them stipends, honoraria, paying your staff to execute. The latter scenario would be a better suited concept to pitch as a DCA project. We love projects with capacity enrollment where you're getting butts in seats, reaching audiences that's aligned with your mission, the content, and the themes of the presentations. So other considerations is also to take a look at the menu of options to think what would be a really successful event in terms of public engagement. Not to say that we are averse to supporting more risky experimental concepts that might not be a huge that might comparatively not be able to draw as much audience. But if you're going to do that, not a bad idea to pair it with a series of other initiatives or offerings where you know you have a reliable audience so that you can achieve that thrifty cost per head ratio we spoke about earlier. Also, a major priority for us is we love helping and incentivizing our arts organizations to build new relationships and partnerships with non-arts organizations, non-arts nonprofits, social service and social justice organizations. In fact, if you are able to conceive of a project where you are making public presentations, not in the concert hall, not in the theater, not in the main stage, but rather, in the community hall or a community center or a community room at a housing nonprofit, at a social justice organization, at a family center, at a refugee center, you would get bonus points from us when it comes to calculating the geography and demographic potential of your project. And finally, we want to incentivize where it makes sense, activities and presentations that take place in the parts of our city where there is comparatively fewer arts institutions, arts organizations, and traditional art spaces. So it's to that point, it's always great to look at the map of the city of LA. City of LA is all those colored parts. We are divided up into 15 council districts. So this is another reminder. If you're thinking about a project taking place outside of this colored area, you're probably thinking of a project that's not eligible because it's not in the city of LA. Stuff in Burbank, La Cañada, Pasadena, Inglewood, Beverly Hills, not allowable areas to be proposing projects for us. But when you look at the map of the LA city, not a surprise, we have a huge concentration of arts organizations, kind of where those freeways intersect, downtown LA, where we have some of our largest institutions. Compare that to the areas that are circled here in the far fringes of the San Fernando Valley, neighborhoods like Canoga Park, Chatsworth, Granada Hills, Northridge, areas in Sunland, Tujunga, Pacoima, Van Nuys, Panorama City. These are all areas where it's very, very hard to find arts organizations and art spaces. Similarly, in South LA, the circled areas in the 8th and ninth council districts, areas below the 10 freeway and above the 105, quite an absence of arts organizations and traditional art spaces there. And more recently, the far west side, areas like Mar Vista and Venice, where we are having a hard time finding and sustaining arts opportunities for the public. Because of these high priority areas, you would also have an opportunity to garner extra points in the geography demographic scoring of your proposal if you're proposing activities taking place in these areas. To access this map, I have a link here, tinyurl.com/LA Council Districts. I encourage all the folks attending here just to double confirm the areas that you plan to do your services are within the city of LA, number one. It's not in any of these other incorporated cities or unincorporated parts of LA County like East LA or Altadena. Those don't count for us. And two, to double check to see if there's an opportunity to prioritize your services in these areas where we want to see more services. So that's not yet another way to strategize and to identify subsets of your activities that will meet the VCA's funding priorities. I'll pause there for regarding geography and LA City priorities. Any questions there, Serena?
No, we have some questions, but I think we can come back to them.
Great. Okay. All right. So folks who are coming back to us to reapply this year will note that we have something new. Whereas in the past, we asked folks to produce a SMU Data Arts funder report for us. We are phasing away from that and instead asking folks to fill out an organizational, financial, and programmatic profile. I know you've heard me stress over and over this session about how we are a project funder, project funder, project funder. But this is the one thing that allows us a bird's eye view of your entire organization. As much as we are as a project funder, panelists do want to have a sense of an organization's overall operational and financial health and offerings. So this is the form that allows us to do that. If you've filled out a data arts profile and produced a data arts funder report for us in the past, you'll find that the things that we're asking of you on this form are directly mirror those same details in that data arts report. So if you're doing this for the first time for us and you have prior year data arts reports, or if you have a data arts reports you're already producing for the County of Los Angeles, who requires data arts information, you can easily copy paste a lot of that information onto our financial and programmatic form. Otherwise, please connect with your teams, delve into your IRS 990s, look at your program metrics, performance data, so you can fill this out for us. When you download this Excel sheet from the guidelines, it's by default set up for recent information starting with your fiscal 26, followed by 25 and 24 years. I understand that some organizations' fiscal year 26 has just finished and you don't have all the data just yet, or you're operating in the calendar year, in which case your 26 is not yet over. Not a bad thing at all to adjust those headers to start with fiscal year 2025, so then you can provide 25, 24, and then 23. To modify those fiscal years on the headers, you'll find a tab at the bottom of this form that allows you to enter the fiscal years you wish to include. We've had some questions about folks like who say they have slightly older numbers. They don't quite have their fiscal 26, totally understandable. That they don't have their fiscal 25. That can be a cause for concern. We anticipate that the vast majority of applicants to this competitive grant program will have very recent numbers starting with 2025 and on. So if indeed you are submitting a more dated set of data, it can raise flags for the peer panelists who are reviewing your proposal. So think about that as you gather your data and prepare your financial programmatic form. As this department moves away from the data arts report, if you already have access to your data arts funder reports on the SMU Data Arts website, and the LA City DCA report is still there, while available, we will accept that in lieu of this form during this period of transition. Finally, if you are a tiny emerging arts organization with operating budget of less than 20K, or you're a recently incorporated nonprofit with 1 year, at least 1 year, but not quite 2 years of data yet, also for us an emerging arts organization, you are exempt from this organizational, financial, and programmatic form. In lieu of that, you can submit a most recently filed 990 with the IRS as documentation for your organizational's operational uh, history. Same as well for our non-arts focused nonprofits who are applying in the outdoor festival and parade category. If you're not an arts organization, you are also exempt from this form and can upload a 990 instead. All right, so we're finally at the point where we talk about how much money can I ask? And so it depends on a number of things. And this is a very text-heavy slide, so uh, I appreciate you allowing us some grace to display all this text on this screen. But this is a common screen that is screen captured, and we want to make sure that you have all the context that come along with it. Generally speaking, it depends largely on how big your organization is. So our very, very small arts organizations, these are nonprofits with operating budgets of less than 20K in the most recently completed fiscal year, or you're a relatively new nonprofit that's been operating for over a year, but not quite 2 years yet. For us, we call you an emerging arts organization. So these are very modest grant asks. You can ask us for up to between $1,500 to $3,000 for an artistic project. And you'll see this line at the end of every one of these sections that your grant ask can never be more than 50% of your total project budget. And the answer for why is because we have a minimum one-to-one match, as I mentioned earlier. So we can never pay for more than 50% of a total project budget because we would expect you to fundraise at least the other half of that total project cost. Small organizations, we define this as groups with operating budgets ranging between 10 and 100K. Such organizations can request up to 20%, pardon me, of the organization's last completed fiscal year to no more than $10,000. And again, assuming that 10K accounts for no more than 50% of the total project budget. Mid-sized groups, these are organizations with budgets ranging between 75K and at least 75K, pardon me. When you get to the well above, $1 million plus, then you start to graduate from the mid-size for us. But for groups of at least 75K in its most recently completed fiscal year, you can ask for up to 10% of your operating cash budget, up to 40K. Again, assuming the project that 40K doesn't account for more than 50% of the total project budget. And our very, very large groups, our large and extra large organizations, operating budgets with consistently 10 million or more. Those are extra large groups, or 800,000 plus are large groups. 4% of your cash operating budget, most recently completed fiscal year, up to 80K, with requests accounting for no more than 50% of the total project budget. Most of our applicants will fall under one of those four categories. And so there is some math involved. But the good news is on the guidelines, you should have found an allowable grant request calculator who will do that math for you, assuming you've done some early homework so you have a sense of what your cash operating budget is from the prior fiscal year and what at least an estimate of what your proposed project is going to cost. Our outdoor festival and parade applicants can request grants from us based on the attendance at the last time their event took place. So our very small groups, these are our very small events. These are the pop-ups and small festivals where you're reaching 500 or fewer the last time you did this. You can request up to $6,000 towards a project. Tier 2 are mid-tier festivals and parades where you're reaching between 500 and 2,000 people, $15,000. And tier 3 are the very, very large events reaching 2,000 plus people can request up to $40,000 from DCA. And again, all of these grant asks, you can never ask for more than 50% of the total cost of the project. Let me stop there and see if there are any questions regarding all this text on the screen.
No questions regarding this text right now. If you could maybe repeat the information about who can use data arts instead of the DCA provided form.
Great. So let me go back to that screen. So folks who are emerging arts organizations, defined as organizations with less than 2 years of operating history, but at least 1 year of operating history, or nonprofit organizations with a mission that is not arts focused, who are proposing an outdoor festival or parade. Basically, if you're not an arts organization, you don't have all the arts data that this form is asking of you. So you are exempt from this. In both cases, you can upload an IRS 990 instead. Yeah. I'm reminded of the question we had from a mid-sized group who recently reached their $1 million mark. Congratulations, first off. That's a great milestone. Um, the good news is if you've completed your fiscal year, you've closed the books, and you can fill out your org profile, and programmatic profile, so that it shows that most recently completed fiscal year of you reaching $1 million plus. You can choose to apply under our mid-size category or our large size category, um, depending on where you want to be adjudicated. And submit a funding request based on the guidelines on this page here. So congratulations on the $1 million plus. Make sure your org profile reflects those updated numbers, and that will be used to justify your grant ask per the details you see on this page.
Someone else is asking if we are going to share a copy of this presentation.
We share this, yes, the video of this presentation will be online. So that's the way we ask that you reference these slides, only because we want you to have the full context in which the slides are presented. And so visit the DCA YouTube channel tomorrow, and you'll see a recording of this available for you.
I think that's good, and we can come back to the other ones.
So let's take a moment here to just take a snapshot of what the timeline is for the grant program. You are here attending a webinar, create a SurveyMonkey Apply account now, where this is an online platform where the application is submitted. Make sure that online application is submitted by August 28th. That's the last Friday of August. Get that in and submitted by the deadline. It happens to be an 11:59 p.m. deadline, but I hope you're able to submit it well before then so you can enjoy the rest of that weekend. And also, you want to get it in sooner so you can take advantage of the staff support and coaching. We are not hanging around checking the inbox, unfortunately, at 11 p.m. on August 28th. So it's in your interest to get that submitted sooner than later. We also ask for a hard copy of your proposal. So don't forget this key step. Once you submit your online application, you're going to get an automatically generated email confirming your submission, and you'll have some instructions there how you could print a truncated version of your proposal, sign a certification form attesting to the accuracy of all the information, and you got to mail that to us with a postmark date by September 2, which is the following Wednesday. And then in the ideal case, you will not hear from us for several months. We're going to be busy reading your proposals. The staff will audit for eligibility, and then we're going to pass it on to peer panels to review and adjudicate. We hold on to those results, and we submit a budget to City Hall based on the results of those rankings. And then once the city budget for fiscal 27-28 is official, you will hear from us in the May-June timeframe of 2027 with the results. And then finally, your project can take place within this 12-month window of July 27 to June 2028. Okay, I'm going to pause here for questions again before I jump into SurveyMonkey Apply so we can take a look at what the application looks like.
Someone is asking if the new financial statement template is going to be in the application can be downloaded beforehand. So I believe the one that was on not the last slide, but the one before.
Absolutely. So yes, if you can log on to the DCA website, the guidelines, and actually I'll switch over to that screen right now. So this is the DCA website and guidelines for the Cultural Grants Program. I think folks have seen this already because it's probably how you registered for today's session. If this is the first time you're seeing it, please At the very, very least, read this initial welcome page. It distills a lot of the stuff we've just discussed now about the key things to consider when applying to a grant with us. But the question around the financial reporting form, you can find a link to that right here on the main page. And download a copy of the Excel sheet here. Okay. Also important to look at on this web page is the peer panel process. So under grant guidelines, under the panel review process, it gives you an overview of what the grant staff does to review and adjudicate and rank the proposals that we receive. Always great to know how you're going to be evaluated as you jump in before jumping into the proposal, because every word that you type in, every sentence, every thought, every idea should somehow in the back of your mind speak to the various scoring criteria that we're going to be using to adjudicate your proposal. So here is a quick overview of what those are. If you are applying to us in the emerging, small, mid-size categories, we have these key criteria to evaluate your proposal. Admin capacity, this is, the experience caliber of your organization's key leadership as demonstrated by resumes and the bios that you include. Your organizational profile financial sheet will go a long way in showing panelists that you have the organization capacity to deliver on the project that you are proposing. Artistic merit, this is the quality and excellence of the artistic work that you are proposing, as demonstrated by the CVs and resumes and bios of the key artists that you're going to include in your proposal, and of course the videos and other artistic samples that you're including in your proposal. Geography and demographics. This is the one thing the DCA staff has a huge influence on, because we basically take a look at where you're proposing to do your project. Does it align with our priority areas? Are you including innovative partnerships with non-arts organizations? This gets you 10 points at the base level, plus some potential bonus points. So do take a look at all these opportunities for bonus points if you are very strategic about where your project is taking place. So here's a summary of that. If you're emphasizing online spaces, reaching a wide range of audiences through your website, through live stream performances, through online engagements, as long as they're produced from LA City and you have a means of monitoring and capturing meaningful data about who's chiming in, that gets you a 1 bonus point. Libraries, philological, spiritual, or science centers gets you +2. Schools and universities, +3. Family service or elder care centers, +4. And the top priority for us is partnerships with social justice advocacy centers, gets you a bonus of +5. So we are really leaning hard on our ability and our organization's relationships with non-art, social justice, social service organizations. If that's a way of frame, that's a very strategic way of maximizing your geography and demographic score with us. Ideas or intention. Is this a good idea, innovative, avant-garde idea that you're proposing? How exciting is the idea? Is it interesting? These are things that we ask panelists to rate you on ideas or intention. The extent to which you are fulfilling your organization's mission through your program, to the extent to which you are creating measurable impact with the audiences that you are reaching. We ask panelists to assess that as well. And community relevance, to the connections that you're drawing between the topics, themes, artists, presentations, and the audience that you want to reach. The relevance to the DCA's funding priorities. These are things we ask the panelists to rate as well. If you're in our festival category, facile projects, large budget, extra large budget proposals, we take out artistic merit because it has a less of a bearing in our adjudication in those categories. And so we have a slightly adjusted point distribution in those instances. So very good to keep these panel considerations in mind before you jump into the proposal. And you find the proposal by going on the apply section here. You'll have a summary of all the application requirements here. And then there's a link to the SurveyMonkey Apply platform. This is the main page. So if this is brand new to you, the very first thing you're going to want to do is to click on that green button on the top, click on register and create an account. We're talking about the Cultural Grants Program here. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to be an organization, a nonprofit organization based in the LA region to apply. So when registering, it is important that you set up your account to be to show that you're a representative of a nonprofit organization. You're not, in other words, you're not setting it up to be an individual or freelance artist. So click on that register button if you have an account already. Otherwise, you can simply log in, click on that, and we can log into my account here so we can see a little placeholder dummy application in place. So here's one thing that often trips up folks. I'm currently logged in, but I'm listed as my individual name. I did not select the organization that I'm representing. And if I leave it at that status, I won't be able to apply to the cultural grant program. And so if I go in programs, cultural grant program is here. I can't apply to it at the moment because I don't have my organization selected. So once I select my organization, I can see that in the upper left here as my organization name. If I go to programs, click on more, I'll now see a green button to apply. Okay. But rather than starting a brand new application, let's take a peek at my pending proposal. I want to highlight some of the key things here. A lot of this, is self-explanatory, but I want to highlight some of the things that we see in our auditing that often trips up applicants. So a couple of quick navigational kind of guidance here. This is what the application looks like. Listed here is kind of like your checklist of to-do items. These are all the various components that comprise a proposal to us. Most of the work you'll be doing is in this organizational grant proposal section. And a bunch of this stuff is simply uploads of supplementary files and links. So let's jump into the first portion. The meaty part of this proposal is your actual grant proposal. So I want to highlight a couple of things. Number one, oftentimes it's not immediately clear how you navigate from page to page. They are actually down here in the bottom. The previous and next pages will do that. A lot of basic information about your organization, contact information. Give us multiple contacts. It's not uncommon. Again, you're not going to hear from us for several months in the ideal case. We're going to go to the names that we see here and email addresses to send you updates about your proposal. Please make sure it's something that you have access to, and have a backup contact just in case the original contact is no longer there. I want to highlight a couple of items that are not so obvious. Number one, make sure select your project type, artistic disciplines. If you're doing an artistic project, you can see that the panel groupings for which we are not convening the experts this year, we have a parenthetical there marking them as off cycle. So if you are an off cycle applicant with an artistic project or a Sail Cape project where we don't have the experts this year, do remember that we are capping your grant ask this cycle at no more than, I think we had 3 or 6K. All right. Otherwise, calculating an allowable grant ask, you can use our grants tool, our grants allowable request calculator to determine that amount. Let's see here. I wanted to highlight, this is where you enter your grant ask. Don't forget to enter your grant amount request here and to double confirm it's allowable. We have a link here to remind you have a tool at the ready to help you determine and double check your grant ask. I wanted to highlight 2 new questions here for folks who are reapplying to us. You'd be surprised how many proposals we get. They fill out the 500 word count of the proposal narrative, and our panelists are still left with asking the question, what's the topic and theme that they're going to explore? What are the details? This is so very vague. They lack specifics. So we are going to try this year to help you, the applicant, get that detail out to the panelists right off the bat. We've given you a list of common thematic purposes that we see across all our project proposals. We want you to pick one that best aligns with your proposal and what you plan to do with a DCA grant. So pick the one that you feel like best reflects the emphasis of your project. Let's say I'm proposing, in this example, I have here a concert series where I'm showcasing new works by LA-based composers. And so there's a great button for that, premiere new work by with LA artists. And then following this thematic purpose selection, we want you to articulate in just a few words. Just give us the one or two sentences about what is the specific topic within that theme that your project is going to explore. Let's say the big theme is we're premiering new compositions by LA-based artists. And in this example, let's say the specific topic is it's going to be a spring concert series celebrating joy and rejuvenation, premiering new works by LA-based AAPI composers. That really gives panelists a really clear, concise thing to hang their hat on when they're thinking about to what extent does everything else in your proposal do to fulfill that vision. So take advantage of these two new questions. We are hopeful it'll tee you off to a much more competitive and effective proposal when it comes to panel adjudication. I want to highlight a couple other things here. Council districts where you are planning your activities. Be careful here. Really be strategic about the council districts you want to select. As I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, when you find yourself clicking 5 or more of these council districts in the city, I bet there's an opportunity to be more focused and strategic about the areas you want to reach with your project grant. And if you do 5 or more, there needs to be a very clear explanation somewhere in your product narrative why you are not so focused geographically. We have projects as well, as I mentioned, if you're an online broadcast, web-based project, you have an option to select all. The only time you're really selecting the all button really is in these instances when you're doing online programming, broadcast programming, reaching everybody. But it is important that it is produced within the city of LA and that you have a means to capture meaningful data about your audiences. Don't forget that key detail. In this example, let's say I'm going to be focusing my project on the 6th and 12th districts out in the San Fernando Valley. Project start and end dates. I am proposing a series of concerts in AAPI Heritage Month in May of 2028, celebrating AAPI LA composers. So this is yet another check on you to make sure that you're proposing a project and not a program. The vast majority of our projects can be and ought to be completed within 6 months' time. If you find yourself entering dates here that go beyond that, check your activities, see if there's opportunity to be more focused about it. Most of this stuff should be completed within 6 months. Impact to proposed services. This is important because it goes towards calculating your project cost per head. Project participants, consider this. In this example I have here, I would count the staff, volunteers, front of house staff for the concerts, certainly the composers, the musicians, the solo artists that I plan to hire as part of this project, and audience members, pretty self-explanatory. I'm planning a series of, let's say, 10 concerts. I'm hoping for at least 80 people in each one. It gives me an estimate of 800 people I want to reach via an audience. Okay, let's look next here so you can see the next page. After that basic information about your project proposal, we go into the narrative components of your project. We have a series of questions here with a starburst icon. These are the same narrative questions that the County of Los Angeles asks as part of their grant proposal process. So a lot of this stuff like mission, your history, planning and leadership, you can copy and paste from your research proposal to the county because it's the same exact question and just tailor it as needed for us at the DCA. It is important when entering the mission to keep this super short. We are interested in literally the board-approved mission of your organization. This is one of the first things we look at as staff with auditing eligibility. We want to determine whether or not you are an arts and culture-focused organization, and if not, if you're not, you're still based in LA proposing an outdoor festival project. Okay, so this mission statement, board approved. History programming, planning leadership. Please emphasize the most recent notable things that you want panelists to know. Community core audience. This is an important detail and pairs with your project narrative to help panelists understand how your planned activities is meeting the needs and demand of your community core audience. artistic policy. Tell us about, is this, artistic director primarily led? Is it more of a collective style? Panelists like to understand how artistic decisions are made and how artists are paid. If you're typing in this artistic policy section and you're finding that most of your artists are volunteer based because they want to give back to community, they're very excited to participate. Think about how you can still show panelists you're rewarding them, rewarding your volunteer artists for their time, whether it's gift cards or other gestures of compensating artists. Volunteers are certainly important, extremely important for all the projects that we fund, but I want to remind you of our priority to fund professional practicing artists. So think about how you can tailor your project proposal to meet that priority, even if you have a project that happens to be heavily volunteer supported. Finally, project narrative. So this is the meatiest part of your grant proposal. This is where you tell us about the nuts and bolts, the specifications of what you are asking city funding for. This is so important. We actually give you a blurb here to work off of to start off your project narrative. And we want and it's important that you kind of think about a project that has quantifiable numbers of public services. As I alluded to earlier, you should never expect to get 100% of your grant ask if awarded a grant with the city of LA. In this example, I'm proposing how much is this? I think a $32,000 project. Let's say I score very well, the panel loved my project, but the budget of the LA city for the next fiscal year is such that the best scoring proposals get only 50% of what they asked for. So it's good that if I'm proposing a project that is very scalable in nature. So let's say this $32,000 project, if funded 100%, I can do 10 free or low cost concerts. But if I'm given only half, I want to be able to easily scale this down to say 5. So think about scalability when pitching your project proposal, because you can never get 100% of your grant ask. Put on your journalistic technical language hat on there. You can take off the marketing hat for the purpose of the project narrative. We want very clear, concise technical details about what you're proposing. So I have an example here where I'm proposing 10 free or low cost concerts at XYZ Concert Hall in Northridge. And X number of concerts at ABC Senior Center in Panorama City, taking place AAPI Heritage Month, May 2028. That is a very clear, concise. Panelists immediately understand what you plan to do with DCA grant. Subsequent sentence can remind panelists that this is only a subset of all the wonderful things my organization does. It reminds them that you've been thoughtful about identifying a subset of your activities that you want to define as a DCA project. And everything else is an opportunity for you to brag about the various artists that you're going to bring in, the guest solo artists that you're hiring to uplift specific topics and themes that you articulated earlier in this proposal. You can explain how the DCA investment is going to make this concert series bigger, faster, better, whether it's making it free, making the tickets much more accessible. You're reaching new audiences, new geography. You need to articulate what the impact is with this project. Gives you an opportunity to talk about the various partnership organizations involved. As I mentioned earlier, we love projects that explore new relationships with non-arts organizations. This is an opportunity to highlight their contributions and extent of their partnership. All right, impact and outcomes. Please, because you've done this project in the past, you have some base metrics and impacts and stories to share with the panelists. Do articulate those here and talk about how they can be expanded upon within city investment. And very important, the staff and artist section. This is yet another area where we want new applicants to really beef up their responses. Folks who applied to us in the past recall there's a supplement at the end, an attachment where you highlight the past year paid artist that you've supported through the project. We've been finding more and more applicants have not been giving enough detail in terms of who the proposed future artists and staff they want to support with this project. So we've included this expanded blurb here as a reminder. We want applicants to really forecast who are the key people that they're going to be supporting, inviting to make their project a reality. So feel free, be encouraged to fill out the names, titles, and short bios, 2 to 3 sentences about each person that you're going to be paying as part of your project. I would very much welcome folks to click on the yes button here to add more members. Panelists have been disappointed in recent cycles about not knowing enough about which specific artists that the requested grant money would be going toward. It's very easy to list your current staff leadership, artistic director, executive director, administrative folks who really make the project a reality. We've been finding panelists want more information about the artists that you're going to be hiring and bringing in for this iteration of your project. So let's make panelists happy, get you higher ranking scores. We'll get that detail in. After submitting that, we go into the financials for your project budget. So I have an example here. We divvy up the project budget into 2 parts, no surprise. We ask for your income sources first, followed by your planned expenses. Your project income and project expenses should match exactly dollar for dollar. We want to see how much it costs, and we want to see what specific sources you found to cover those costs. So in this example of a free low cost concert series, I might have some ticket sales, but I want to encourage everyone to fully take advantage of the budget notes section. We still see too many proposals who fill in the numerical values of their project budget, but leave the budget notes blank, leaving panelists totally in the dark about where these numbers are coming from. Take advantage of the budget notes, please. So in this example, I have $1,000 of projected ticket sales, and I have a budget note here saying these concerts are going to be pay what you wish, but we are estimating approximately $1.25 per person in earned revenue based on an estimated audience of 800 people. So giving panelists the exact math that you use to arrive at this estimate goes a long way in convincing them you've really thought about this project and that you're proposing something that is realistic and practical. Other sources of income here in this example, I have some board member contributions, private donations, a family foundation grant, and very importantly, every grant proposal we get, without exception, needs to have this line 21, government city, with the dollar amount that you're asking of us. Don't fall into the trap of submitting a project budget where you leave this blank because you're basically telling us you can do this project without us. Don't do that. So we have yet to find a way for the software to automatically transfer the grant number from the first page to the second page. So unfortunately, we can't do that for you automatically. And all we can do is to remind you to please make sure this field has your grant ask included there, DCA grant request. Let's say in this example, I happen to also be a County of LA OGP grant recipient. I am apportioning $1,000 of my operational grant towards this project. So I have a budget note to clarify that. I am lucky enough to have some state money as well in this example. I have that listed. And I've also accounted for the donated concert space that my project partners are providing towards this project. In-kind contributions, as I mentioned, are totally welcome and can count toward meeting your minimum matching requirements. So all that told, in this example, I have $16,000 in total income. I expect to see expenses adding to exactly 16K as well. So in this example project, I am emphasizing payment to artists and performers and salaries as for my staff. Include some budget notes here letting panelists understand how you arrived at that dollar amount. Let's say I might have an artistic director on staff here for 12 months out of the year. I am calculating X% of that annual salary towards this project, and that's what the dollar amount is. Again, let panelists know how you're arriving at these estimates. I am emphasizing the vast majority of my grant ask and more so towards the payment of guest composers and artists, musicians. Panelists love to see project budgets that emphasize the payment of artists as it aligns with our priority, and panelists love to see artists get paid also. You see I have some expenses here for catering and hospitality. Even though these are not allowable uses of grant funds, we totally understand that sometimes and quite often that's required for a successful project. So if you are going to include dollar amounts for unallowable DCA expenses, make sure to emphasize and let the panelists know you realize that, but you remind them that you have other matching sources who are going to cover these expenses. Again, that level of detail really goes a long way in reassuring panelists that you know what you're doing. Other expenses are listed here, including venue rentals. That's the in-kind contribution I mentioned earlier. And again, I have total expenses amounting to 16K. So based on the dollar amounts you enter on this budget, the platform does calculate for you automatically what project cost per head ratio you're looking at. So it takes this $16,000 project and divides it by the 800 some people I plan to reach with it. And that gets me a cost per head ratio of about just under $20. That's very, very thrifty and very ambitious, but that definitely falls within our definition of a low cost, thrifty project that's appropriate for DCA funding. A couple of other things that often trips up applicants in the project budget. Panelists are very savvy. They know when numbers seem to be inflated. So think about that when you're filling this out, and that you're really showing realistic, practical dollar amounts that won't raise those kind of concerns with panelists. Panelists get really concerned if they see a super inflated budget from applicants who might just want to beef it up to be higher so they can ask for more money from DCA. I very much discourage that. Panelists are smart. They look at your organizational operating history. They compare that with your project budget. They look at your past performance and the details and metrics you provided about your past projects to make sure everything kind of lines up properly. Okay, so avoid the temptation of overinflating these numbers for the purposes of asking for more money from DCA. After the project budget section, you've now completed the proposal section of the application. So you can mark that complete. SurveyMonkey Apply keeps track of your progress on this checklist with these little check marks. Items that are with a check mark are things that you've completed and are ready to be submitted. We spoke about the financial and programmatic profile. This is yet another opportunity to download the blank version of it. Please upload it back in its original Excel format so that it maintains consistency for ease of viewing for our panelists. As I mentioned, if you're an emerging arts organization or if you're a non-arts nonprofit proposing an outdoor festival parade, you're exempt from the financial programmatic profile form. Instead, please upload a IRS 990 instead. IRS designation letter, this is pretty straightforward. Please upload the letter confirming your designation as a 501c nonprofit from the IRS. We've had some folks upload comparable documentation from the state of California. Please upload your federal designation here. Board of Directors, the thing I'll flag here is just please use and upload the DCA org profile form. We have oftentimes applicants they have a prepared board member list already and they upload that instead. It doesn't always have the same detail that our panelists want. Please use our form to maintain consistency information for our panelists. Artistic work samples, super important, especially for determining the artistic merit score for your proposal. This is a performing arts year. We're going to get proposals from our dance organizations, music, theater, and our multidisciplinary performing arts groups. You should be uploading videos of your artistic samples. These panelists will have read, tens and dozens of proposals, eyes on the page, eyes on the screen. Delight them with some amazing video artistic samples of the great work your organization does. So with links, you're allowed to upload up to 3 links. So be very thoughtful about the links you're submitting. General guidelines for video samples is to upload videos that kind of show the panelists as if what the experience of the event is, as if they were in the audience. So oftentimes that means minimal edits and cuts or splashy, modifications to the video. Some of the most compelling artistic samples is, shot straight from sitting in the audience, what's happening on stage. If it's a workshop experience where you're working with an educator, teaching artist, some videos of the workshop facilitation in action is very well regarded and appreciated by panelists. Avoid overly edited, super splashy sizzle reels. Panelists want to be able to see for a sustained period the artistry on stage. They like to see the audience reactions. They like to see the volume of audience. They want to be able to see those kind of details with a more kind of like sustained and prolonged video as compared to highly edited, spliced, modified video samples. If for whatever reason you want to upload still images as artistic samples, you have that option. But I want to encourage the vast majority of our performing arts applicants to make use of links for uploading videos. If you do want to use images, maybe you're a museum organization submitting an off-cycle visual arts proposal. You might want to submit, still images and detail of a star, of a guest, a visual artist that you want to show. In which case, images are allowable. You can upload up to 10 images in that case. All right, with my links uploaded, I'm going to mark this as complete. Okay. All right. Supplementary materials, another super key important part of your application submission. So we have a series of them. Let me go through each one, kind of highlight some of the key considerations. Attachment A is super important. This is a listing of your planned venues and locations for your project. So we ask for a couple of key details. I want to know the name of the place, its address, its city council district. Please make sure it's in the city of LA, please. We still get some venues that are outside of LA City. Number of years you've worked with this venue, so panelists have a sense of the relationship you have with this venue and likelihood of success of actually happening there in the future. Audience capacity, so I want to make sure that math kind of matches up with your planned estimated audience size. And a quick blurb and around an estimation of how many other grant funded projects are taking place at this site. We want applicants to start thinking about the uniqueness and competitiveness of the venues that they're proposing. I highlighted some of the things earlier about what can garner you bonus points. If you want to work with a family center, a refugee center, a housing nonprofit, you can get bonus points because they're non-traditional spaces. If on the other hand, you're going to a traditional space, a rental house, for example, it's good for you to talk to the venue manager to have a sense of to what extent other DCA grantees are using it. Because let's say you're thinking about going to a specific theater, there's a resident theater there also who might be applying to DCA for funding, and you're proposing your shows to be there. It's not uncommon to see panelists privilege the resident applicant for using that space. And if there's an opportunity for you to do something elsewhere that might be less frequented by other grantees or other arts organizations, it could be to your advantage. Because panelists and we like to see sprinkling of arts resources across the LA City map. We don't love a high concentration of many events at a single venue. Prior year paid artists, this kind of goes hand in hand with your forecasted list of artists to be funded with your project. This shows panelists the level and caliber quality of the artists that you have funded in the past. So it also goes towards your artistic merit score. So take advantage of the attachment to showcase that list of past year paid artists. We have an opportunity for you to upload some recent press material. We know it can be difficult to get press coverage. In the absence of recent press material, you are welcome to upload an unsolicited letter of support or praise from a past audience member, a past workshop participant, so you can highlight a third person outside voice telling us how awesome you are. Curriculum and lesson plans. This is a mandatory attachment if you're applying in our Sail Cape category. It needs to be robust, detailed, and rigorous, aligned with California state standards. There's no page limit on this. We want you to upload documentation that shows that you are delivering a really meaningful, rigorous in-school arts education program. If you are not doing a Sail Cape project, but you might be doing another type of artistic project, a FAFSA project, or maybe even an outdoor festival event where you have educational components. It's not a bad idea to upload a sample, lesson, workshop plan, so you can show panelists the level and detail of that educational offering. I would encourage you to upload something if there is some sort of educational component in your project. If on the other hand, it's simply a free ticket to see, live chamber music for an hour and leave, minimal educational experience there, it's okay to select the project, the button that shows that does not involve a curriculum or lesson plan. The last two items are optional, but very encouraged attachments. Give us a list and detailing of the various non-arts partners involved in your project, and a letter of recommendation from a non-paid, non-participant in your project. A letter of recommendation from a past family member or audience member who's participated in your programming. These are all great testimonials and go a long way in showing panelists of the great impact your project does. The strongest proposals, top ranking proposals, almost without fail, upload something good in these sections. If you're leaving these blank and empty when you submit, it's a missed opportunity. So do take advantage of it. And finally, what do I have left here? I think that's it. I have a section here for estimated service metrics. Beyond the number of people you're going to reach in your proposed project, if you have some reliable estimates based on your past experience about number of jobs you're going to support, volunteers, the age range of the people attending, socioeconomic backgrounds of the people participating, at some helpful context. This is something that the panelists will not see, that only the staff will see and have a sense of the potential reach of your project. And finally, in the evaluation feedback form you can fill out, so you can pass along feedback to the DCA grant staff about your experience putting together this grant proposal. It takes a lot of hours. We're aware of that. It's a lot of detail, and we are very appreciative of the wherewithal from the arts community to put this content together for funding from the city. So with that, I can now click submit and get my proposal submitted. And it'll ask you one last time to double check, and we encourage you to do the same before clicking the green button again to cancel out of this, go through every section of this thing, re-review your narrative segments. You might have been smart to use a separate, Microsoft Word document to prepare all your narrative responses in advance, so you can take advantage of spell check, grammar check, word count tools before you copy and pasted it into the application. Sometimes people do that, but it inadvertently truncates a response, so you're leaving folks with incomplete sentences or ideas. Double check that you've included all the proper bits in there. Check the file uploads. Not terribly uncommon to accidentally upload an IRS Form 990 in the section for supplemental attachment A. And so all of a sudden you're missing a key attachment. And it might prompt a phone call from us for you to fix, and we might allow you to fix it before it goes to panel, but at a cost of at some point penalties. So avoid that pitfall. Do a double check on all your narrative responses to make sure they're complete and that you've uploaded the intended files and any opportunity to upload a file. After you've checked, double checked, and triple checked, you are then clear to submit your proposal, and you'll get a thank you email confirming receipt with additional instructions for getting that hard copy in. All right, we've passed now we're hitting the almost 2 hour mark, so I'll pause here for questions. Serena, did we cover everything?
We've got some questions, definitely. So for
Okay.
FASL proposals, do they have to choose a specific discipline and also upload artistic samples?
Uh, no discipline selection. When you select the the FASL option, it's not going to ask you for an artistic discipline. So all good there. Or artistic samples. So your artistic samples in the case of a FASL project, you're not showcasing public presentations. Rather, you're going to showcase us ideally videos of workshop facilitation, peer-to-peer networking happening in real time. So panelists can appreciate the attendance, the quality of conversation and exchange, rather than the artistic merits of a public presentation.
Will an organization be automatically disqualified if their board-approved mission does not mention art, or will the entire application be weighed?
If the board-approved mission statement does not include the delivery of art services, if you're proposing an outdoor festival or parade, we will continue reviewing the proposals. It's good to go. If on the other hand, you're proposing an artistic project, that could be a problem. and so very likely to be automatically disqualified.
If an organization wants to submit press material that is a video, where should they submit it?
Press material that's a video. Hmm. Okay, in that case, because that particular question only accepts files, you might compile what you want to present to panelists as easily clickable links on a document that you can upload in lieu of an actual news article. So make sure to think about the panelist experience, customer experience, so to speak. When they open up that file, make that link very easily clear. Like click here to see recent, ABC 7 news coverage of our event. Click here and make sure it loads up very easily. No passwords. Make it easy for the panelists to see.
You. We also have an organization who would like to submit a playwrights festival that's presented in July, but the festival is a culmination of a program that begins in February of 2027. Would it be eligible even though it starts outside of the dates?
Uh, So this is a tricky one. It's important to highlight to the panelists your understanding of the straddling fiscal years. So in this example, your project should emphasize a July 1 or July 2027 presentation, open free or low cost, open to the public, which is clearly a culmination of activities that took place, in the months leading toward it. But if you're requesting, if that's the extent of your project proposal, very easy, because then you're framing an artistic project proposal around free or low cost presentation of open to the public. If on the other hand, you want the educational process, the workshop process, working with emerging up and coming playwrights to be part of the narrative, you need to structure the narrative to focus on the activities that will take place in February of 2028. If that makes sense. So in a way, you're making it clear to the panelists because of the way your programming schedule is and the city's fiscal year is structured. Your project for the CA would start off with a public presentation, followed by educational opportunities that will culminate in another presentation to be covered by another contract. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that reminds me, it's a good question because we ask you that you are proposing activities within this 12-month period that matches the city's fiscal year. All projects submitted to us are 1-year projects. So you're submitting a project budget, you're submitting project metrics, you're submitting a project narrative all around the project that takes place within no more than 6 months within the fiscal year. Our grants are 1-year grants. What happens if in lieu of asking you to reapply for a second year of funding, assuming your proposal was adjudicated by the right panel, it's an on-cycle proposal, in lieu of submitting a new proposal for the second year, we simply ask, hey, do you want to repeat your project in concept for a comparable dollar amount for a second year of funding? And you select yes or no. And then that's how you get a second year of funding from us. In this way, you apply to us to DCA every other year. So if you're a theater company, you're applying a proposal now, it'll, in best case scenario, get you a grant for fiscal 28. After fiscal 28 closes, we'll ask you, hey, do you want to do this again? And you say yes, and you'll get a to be determined dollar amount in fiscal 29 for a second year of renewal funding. And then you would reapply to us in the year 2028. So we want applicants to arrive at a cadence of applying to us every other year to garner you separate 1-year contracts, if that makes sense.
Okay. How do veteran hospitals or homes on base affect geographic and demographic scores?
Veterans, um, if the facilities are within that map of the city of LA, it can work. It can work. It can be eligible. For example, we support projects at the VA, in the west side of the city in the 11th district. We Even though technically that patch of land might be federal and might not be officially City of LA, we will make exceptions for projects that reach, disenfranchised, hard to reach constituencies and communities if it's happening otherwise within the City of LA. So I hope that answers the question. If it's happening there in the VA, for example, and out in Council District 11, which is surrounded by Council District 11, that would count for us as an eligible initiative, as an allowable initiative.
Okay, what if a project is a proposal to expand a previously produced theater performance piece and adapt it as a filmed performance piece? Is this eligible under the theater or interdisciplinary category?
That's a good question. I think it will have to boil down to the nature of the list of artists that you plan to pay as part of this project concept, and who are the ones and which experts you want adjudicating it. If this is going to become primarily a filmmaking project, where you would rather have media experts, film media academics, film festival administrators, film festival producers assessing the project, it might be a media project. If on the other hand, it's a your list of paid artists and creative workers are primarily stage actors, playwrights, technical folks in theater, it can work as a theater project.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. We have another question. I'm not sure about a lot of the details, but the general idea is that they would like to work with school kids outdoors on a mural with live musicians and guided by theater performers. Does this pass the criterion, and if so, under what discipline?
There's a lot there. So it might be a project concept that is, ripe for, extra strategic tinkering to identify the components that would lend itself well to a really compelling proposal. There was a lot mentioned there. Number one, public murals is already like a buzzword that can introduce challenges. Our grants are all around. I hope this came through clearly in today's presentation, supporting temporary arts experiences. A live presentation, a temporary, a one-day outdoor festival. These are all temporary art experiences. Permanent art, like public murals, is problematic. DCA grant funds can't support be used toward the production of a public mural. However, we can support the unveiling, the celebratory event that's open to the public of the mural. We can support the process of developing the mural involving community members, teaching artists, active artists in the field. It's important to emphasize in the project proposal that the component that DCA funds can support. So if it's the unveiling event, the ribbon cutting ceremony, where you have a side stage with live performance and music, these are the things that can be eligible either as an artistic project or an outdoor festival for us. Pop up in this case, probably.
Okay. If a project takes place across 8 or 9 months, should we truncate it to 6? For example, in Sail Cape, and it would take place across the academic year.
The answer is yes. It'd be recommended that you find a way to kind of frame it as more of a project that does not go beyond 6 months. So that might be as simple as, focusing only on either the initial or latter portion of the residency, ensuring that the public presentation after school, evening hours, something that's marketed to the general public that Serena and I can drive to, is a part of the project.
If we've worked with a Puerto Rican theater troupe here in LA that created a puppet performance as well as a workshop following a 2-week residency, do we need to apply for a project with the same troupe, or can we present a different genre, culture, or art form?
Let's see here. That's an interesting question. Maybe I'll respond to it in this way. Projects that you're proposing to us must be wholly self-produced and presented by the applicant organization. So if your organization is structured around presenting a range of organizations, think about how if there's an opportunity where you can highlight your own staff, your own artists, to for something that you've produced and presented on your own. It can be challenging applicants to our program who are primarily around presenting others because because of that inconsistency that's kind of implied in this question. Um, but the answer is um, yes, you can propose other groups to present, but I would encourage you to find ways to emphasize how your organization, your staff, how your employees are involved in curating that experience, and in the best case, co-producing those presentations, so that you're kind of fulfilling that requirement, but from us as events presentations that you, the applicant, would self-produce and present to the public.
Okay, we have a question about the matching requirement that's been phrased a couple different ways. So can you talk about demonstrating scalability versus saying we will do the full project regardless of city support? Some of these programs have been done before at scale without any city support. If city funding is supposed to make it bigger, better, it seems weird to talk about how a smaller amount of city funding might result in a scaled down project. Um, and this is from a, a similar question was asked by this person earlier is if the city is confident that it will basically never allocate a full ask and will mostly allocate 50% or less, why ask orgs to demonstrate a one-to-one match for the full ask amount?
Okay, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I wish, I have a crystal ball and can forecast what kind of funding we'll have available for our program. I can only reference what is factual and what we've experienced as a department in these last several years. Um, we understand, we need more funding for the arts. Our $4 million budget for this past year to support 350 organizations is not nearly enough to expand, sustain, make bigger, stronger, faster, all the great programming and initiatives our organizations do. But we endeavor to do, as all arts organizations do, to do maximum value and impact with ever declining resources. So the purpose of a proposal is to think of the most optimistic case and best case scenario. I will not guarantee that we're going to have a budget that will allow us to at the very top levels fund grant asks at 50%, 60%, or even higher. Um, Maybe tourism booms, astronomically in the coming year, and the transient occupancy taxes collected by the city grows exponentially, which, by the way, is what funds the entire Department of Cultural Affairs and these grants. Money is collected through the hotel bed taxes and motel taxes. If that number goes up, it increases our ability to lobby and leverage for more funding for our grants. And if our grant budget doubles, triples, quadruples, in that scenario, folks top scoring at the top ranking levels will get far larger percentages of their grant asks. But the answer to the other question about why ask for the one-to-one matching requirement, that's because we never want to fund any initiative at 100%. The city does not want to own the intellectual property, the materials produced and presented wholly. We only want our programming is structured as a matching grant program because our grants tend to and historically have been so small. The best leverage that we've found, and we hear back from our grantees, is even with modest asks, it increases applicants' ability to lobby, fundraise, seek funding from other sources. Um, we're not in a place where we can fund projects at 100%. Please structure your proposal in the best case scenario where let's think optimistically, and you score well. You get a great share of your grant asked to deliver the programmings. And in the event that you don't get all of it, we still want to be able to support you in the great work you do. And so with a reduced grant amount, we would come to you with a proposed service contract with a commensurately reduced level of service.
I'm gonna share with Ben two more questions, but I'm also going to drop our email into the chat. So if you have any other questions or you want to schedule an office hours to be more specific about eligibility, I would invite you to do so there. Um, but we have a question about CD5. They believe it was mentioned as being prioritized this year, but it is also listed as an arts generously served area. Can you speak more about geographic priorities and how that's assessed?
Absolutely. So maybe it might be worth going back to our map. The Fifth Council District has never been, at least in my 7 years here with the city, been an arts priority area for this cultural grants program. The Fifth Council District happens to be where Museum Row is, where some of our largest institutions are housed. We're talking about the Academy Museum, LACMA, the Craft Contemporary. These are some of the largest institutions in our region. And so, at least in my time here, I've never seen the Fifth Council District as a priority area for arts services. In contrast, the areas circled here, you will not have the ability to find an organization as large as the Academy Museum or LACMA reach serving residents, visitors, and tourists. And that is why we emphasize these circled areas because we see the applications, we see the resulting grant allocations. They are heavily concentrated in areas like downtown Los Angeles, Hollywood, Miracle Mile, all those parts in the center of this map. It's these outer edges, the fringes, where there's comparatively far fewer arts organizations who are headquartered there, arts institutions, spaces, or even organizations, freelance artists touring into those spaces. Hence why we emphasize these areas circled. And this should show you a list of council districts 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, the last question I have is, should we focus our application on demonstrating scalability of the project or say that the project will be good with or without city support?
I'd caution against ever suggesting to the panelists that it's going to happen uh, with or without. I think you should emphasize the benefits of what a city investment can do in terms of making the project bigger, faster, better, stronger, better. Panelists recognize that a really remarkable, important, super successful program is going to happen regardless of the dollar amount that one might get from DCA. Your job as the grant writer is to convince the panelists how much better it can be with a city investment, and so find out what that thing is. If it's going to be reaching a far larger audience, is it going to be more free and accessible to the public? Is it allow your organization to achieve advance your mission by reaching certain audiences and geographic areas of the city? That's the mentality I would recommend kind of embracing when it comes to grant writing. Um, with respect to scalability, the scalability is more of a practical detail to consider when putting together a proposal. As I mentioned earlier, you'll never get 100% of your grant ask, but we still want to be able to support your project if you don't get all of it. I mean, if you're proposing a series of only two concerts or two free lower cost presentations, and you wind up getting 25% of your grant task, we want panelists to feel like, oh, they can still do something. It's still some funding that would go and result in some impact. So that's the reasoning behind the scalable structure of your project. Um, Scalability in the context of your plans for growing your programming in the years ahead, that's something you can articulate in your kind of long-term goals section, planning, leadership, even part of your project narrative. So you give us panelists a sense of how you want to grow the program in the future, with or without DCA. That gives them a sense of kind of what your vision is. So let's make that distinct from the practical benefit of proposing a project for us that can be scaled down so that the city can still invest in your work given the constraints that we might get in the next fiscal year's budget.
That's it, Ben. Thank you for answering all of the questions.
Well, I want to thank all the folks who have managed to stick around for the full 2 hours plus. I appreciate your time. We have office hours on Fridays if you want to have further discussions with myself, Serena, and or Brenda. Send an email at dca.grants@lac.org with those requests or any other questions you have about our grant program. Thank you all again for your time. We look forward to your proposals this year.